Hi, this is Dennis Beck, President of SBS. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I really appreciate you joining us today. We're very excited about AUD 8.2. We've been doing a lot of work in product development for the company in general, but particularly very focused on AUD. And as you listen to today's presentation, you'll be hearing a number of new things going on with AUD. It's just really scratching the surface, though. There's a lot more information, particularly for customers. If you go to our support site, there are a lot more details. We're just going to highlight a few things today, but we're really pleased to show you all the cool things we're doing. And if you or your colleagues missed this, it's going to be posted to YouTube. And in addition to going to YouTube, we also encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube site. So there's a lot of effort we've been putting into adding new videos, new content about all our different products and such. So there's quite a bit of information for you there. And again, we just appreciate all your support in this very unusual 2020 year. SBS is doing well. We have many active projects going on with quite a number of you, so we're very appreciative of that. And to that end, I'm going to turn it over now to Marty Palma. And Marty, you can go ahead and get the webinar started for us with this overview of AUD 8.2.
Thank you, Dennis. Let me get my screen sharing here. Is my screen coming through okay, Dennis? Can you see that all right?
Yeah, it looks just fine.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Super excited to get a chance to share with you some of the new features and functions that have been added in AUD 8.2. As Dennis indicated, a lot of hard work has gone into this release, and we're just excited to be able to share some of that with you. So I'll be touching on a few of the key topics today, kind of demonstrating some new features and functionality that we've added in. And as Dennis indicated, there's lots more than what we're going to show you today, and you can get more information on that from the support site. So to start off, I'm going to cover some improvements that we've done for layout tools. And I'm going to start off very small. The first one is symbols, showing symbols and containment of contained features. So when you're placing a point feature now, it used to be in AUD 8.1 and earlier, when you placed, let's say, a pad with a transformer, you would just see the pad. You would only get a preview of the pad as you were placing it, and you would not see a preview of the device that was coming along with it. So in AUD 8.2, we've added the ability now to where you are seeing the device. So when I'm placing pad with transformer here, you can see that I am seeing both the pad and the transformer. So I get a better graphical representation of what I'm placing and what it's going to look like as I rotate it around. So pad with transformer, another good example would be a pole with a light. So now we can see the light, what direction the light is pointing, so that when we're doing our rotation, we are getting, an accurate representation of what we're rotating, because we're getting the device being displayed as well. So just a simple improvement, but hopefully makes layout a little more efficient. A slightly larger and more exciting feature is the ability to do auto path routing and split offset options. So in the past, if you were going to, let's say, place a new transformer and you wanted to connect into this line of conductor that we have running down the street here, you would have to place it, break some lines, reroute the conductor, draw additional conductors into segments. But with this new feature, we've added a new split offset option when placing the feature, similar to the offset option that we have in place already. But when the split offset option is chosen, a subsequent series of prompts will come up, allowing you to pick what you're offsetting from, and then break that conductor and reroute the lines automatically for you from that segment and duct and conductor that you've chosen. And there's several options that go with this that make it quite flexible. So starting off here, I have this run, this segment here with 2 ducts and a conductor in each duct of primary that are running down the center of this roadway here. And so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna place a pad mount transformer. And as we indicated before, you could just hit the down arrow here and we had an option to offset. So I could pick something and say offset this feature at some distance from whatever I picked. But now you can see we have this additional new command here called split offset. And if we select that, this then prompts to pick what it is we want to split and offset from. And there's also additionally a whole bunch of additional options that can be set. The first one is angle. And angle, which defaults to 90 if nothing is specified, specifies the angle to deviate from the line that you're splitting. Radius is adds an additional distance from along the line that we're splitting. This is so that to provide room, for example, for the insertion of automatic sweeps and stuff like that. So if I have a 4-inch duct, a 4-inch conduit that is going to sweep on a 4-foot radius bend, I may want a 4-foot radius added, some additional buffer in there so that there's room to fit the sweep in. Spacing is a distance that you can specify around the point feature that you're placing. It's the amount of space that you want the lines coming up to that point feature to be on either side of the point feature instead of coming right into the center. And when doing spacing, you have the option to also indicate whether or not you want it to add lines in. So if you say space out 10 feet on either side of the pad, and you can have it also then bend back to the pad and take it all the way to the center. And I'll show you examples of that. The 1 offset and 2 offset allow you to do predefined offsets. You can use this then to build like macro buttons and stuff like that that have offsets predefined for yourself. Split line allows you to pick a different line to offset from. So you may want to pick the line that you want to split and also pick a different line where you're offsetting. And we'll show an example of that as well. And then rotation indicates a rotation of the point feature itself. So if you are going to put this in like a macro where you pre-fill everything in and you want your point feature that you're placing your pad to be rotated at 90 or 180, that can be pre-specified using the rotation. And the last one is line model. And this allows you to basically specify what model of trench or segment that you want to use for this, the new stuff that's going to get created during the split. If you don't specify anything, it will use the same model trench slash segment that your current line is, but you have the ability to specify different trench models and stuff like that using that option. Okay, so let's show some examples of this. So I'm not going to use any options to start. I'm just going to just use the command straight away. So it asks me to select the object that I want to split and offset from. And I'm going to select my, my segment here that contains the 2 conductors. And then because I have 2 conductors in here, let's say I'm only running one of the primaries that are running through here up to this transformer. So I'm going to go ahead and use my connectivity and attachment tools here, tooltips, to say do not split this particular conductor, the 6002 conductor. We're only going to split the 610. So I want this other conductor to continue to run straight down the street just like it is. Then I can specify my offset distance. Okay, and oops, sorry, I'm going to start over again here. Let me just set some, forgot to set a different option. So split offset. And I am going to specify 90 because I was running this previously and it was remembering it. So there we go, we'll go at 90. I'm not going to split this conductor. I'm going to specify my distance. Okay, and then I basically get a jig that allows me to show running down the line where I'm going to place my transformer. So I'll go ahead and select here. Okay, and my command continues, so I can do this again. I can run the command again, just pulling the offset, split offset. I can choose my segment again. And in this case, I'm not going to split the 610 conductor. I'm only going to split the 6002 conductor. So I'm going to disconnect that one and then choose my new location of where I want this one placed. And I'm going to go ahead and exit the command. So what happened here? So what AUD did, if I look at this, I've got this segment here with my duct, and this duct is routed up and to my transformer. And here's the 610 conductor that I had split going down that run. And here's the other duct and conductor running all the way down to the second transformer that I placed on the other side of the street. And you can see it automatically did the split for us of the segments. It created the new conductors to run up to the transformer and the new segment to run up to the transformer. It connected everything for us. So if we look at our connected connectivity here, we will see that our transformer is connected to the conductor lines that were rerouted in and out. And then from here, my conductor runs back out of the transformer in a looped situation here and continues on down the line. So this is a very, very convenient tool for doing these split operations. To do this previously in the past, it was a lot of extra work to place in this transition point to split the lines and then draw a new segment up to the device and reroute the conductors through the new segments and ducts, and a lot of extra work. So this saves a ton of time being able to do this. We can also look at this in 3D just to kind of show you graphically what's happening. So as this loads up, we'll see our two runs and how they split. The other one continues on down the line. It's just much easier to see in a 3D representation. So in this case, right, our duct runs up and then back out and back down, and then our other one over here comes. Now we do have a little bit of crossing, which we can correct on this duct by just adjusting the ports for this particular duct. So the this segment is, let's see here, just to fix this. This segment is 1075. So if I look at the port for this particular duct on 1075, I can change it and we can move it over and flip it with the other one. And then we can also change the port that it's connected to at the transformer. And that just corrects our crossing for us. Okay, so there we go. We have a nice clean run down the line, in and out, and a fraction of the time it would have taken us to do it manually before. So I'll show you a couple other options with this. So next, I am going to show you how to basically do the same thing, but this time we are going to offset from a different line. So let's say my standard says I need to be 10 foot from the curb line is where my transformer needs to be placed. So to do that, I don't want to offset from the conductor itself. I want to offset from the curb line, but I want to split the conductor. So I'm going to go ahead and place a transformer. I'm going to specify my split offset, and then options, I'm going to specify the split line option. Okay, this will prompt me to specify the line feature to split. Oops, sorry, start that again. Split offset, split line. Okay, so specify the line feature to split. Split this one, and I'm going to choose to only split the one. and then select the object to offset from. I want to offset from this line right here, and I'm going to offset, let's say 10 feet, or approximately 10 feet. Okay, and now it's doing my offset from the line that I selected, but splitting at my conductor. So I'll go ahead and put that in. Okay, and we basically get the same result with a 10-foot offset from our curb line. I'll show it to you in one other method using a few other of the options. I'm going to run a split offset, and this time I'm going to specify an angle. Let's say I want to offset with a 45-degree angle, and I'm also going to specify a radius. I'm using a 4-inch conductor, and that's going to use a 4-foot radius bend on my sweeps, so I'm going to specify 4 feet. And then last, I want to add some spacing to my pad. I don't want to come directly into the center of the pad. I want to space it 10 feet on either side of the pad. And as part of that, I want it to go ahead and route my conductors from that 10-foot spacing to the side back to the center. So I'm going to say yes. So now I'm going to go ahead and select my conductor. I'm going to split the 610 because I'm going to go to the top. And I'm going to specify my offset distance. And now you can see my jig shows the 45-degree angle split that's going to happen along with the 10-foot offset on either side of the pad, and then the lines being rerouted back into the center of the pad. So I can go ahead and place that. And we can see that AUD automatically went ahead and split our line, split our segment and duct, rerouted it. And here's the 4-foot buffer that I added that allows the sweep to fit inside of this new segment. So it adds the sweep here. And then here's the 10-foot offset to either side of my pad where it comes up and then creates the new line segment into the center. So again, we can go ahead and pop into 3D and take a quick peek at this. And you can see the routing here in 3D. So pretty cool, pretty exciting stuff. Makes this workflow much, much easier to use. And we're very excited about this new tool. We've had a lot of customers, that have had to do a lot of hard workarounds, not necessarily hard workarounds, but time-consuming workarounds to be able to do these types of workflows. And so we think this will improve layout much cleaner and faster to do these types of splits and offsets. So the next thing I'd like to cover is we've added a new ribbon control that's now available that's pretty exciting, that allows us to lay out the CUI in a cascading drop-down menu version of the default controls panel. So the default controls, now also display options to where we can have digitized placement buttons right with the control itself. And this new cascading drop-down control, basically we've added in some additional things to allow you to rework your ribbon and CUI to improve performance or improve how quickly you can draft something without having to go to different menus and stuff like that to pick things. So to show an example of this, I'm going to flip over here to a different drawing. And I am going to enable a separate panel that I've created. Okay, so you can see here's the out-of-the-box electric underground ribbon and panel. And in that panel, right, typically in the past when you're designing, you would have to come into here and set all of your defaults. to what it is you want to design, and then come up to the ribbon here and select, okay, draw primary line with duct. Well, which primary line with duct is that going to draw? It's going to draw whatever I have selected down here. So you're having to do multiple clicks where you come in, you set defaults, then you come up to a different button and a drop down and go pick entries from that, and bouncing around. And then all of a sudden you want to do something else, you have to come back into here, change the default, then come back up and select a different command button. So what this new option gives us, and I'm just going to open up the CUI editor. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail on how to configure this, but just give you a basic idea of what it entails. So AUD ships with a customization CUI file that defines the ribbon and menus, and most customers then go ahead and choose to customize this, but it usually starts from this control. So on the ribbon, there are panels, and in my new electric underground panel that I've created, I've added in this, I've added in a new control. So that control is this AUD underground placement control. And if I go to the control list here and look at ribbon controls, and just sort on the command name, you will see here in the past, this AUD underground models placement control was this defaults panel that you see here. This placement one though, this new one that we've added, we've had one for placement, one for substation, one for overhead, one for water. These placement ones are kind of a specialized version of that can now be used. So bouncing back out of here, what that allows us to do is in AUD options, where we kind of define our, under the default profile, where we define our profile views, which kind of make up the commands and what happens with these ribbons as we use them. We've added this new command called Auto Command Mode. And in this, normally this is set to default or just straight disabled, but we've added some additional options in here now for enabled, multiple segment, and multiple segment. So by setting this to segment, I've basically said, okay, I want to turn on buttons. So let me come back over to here. In my defaults panel, I am now enabling a digitize command right next to the thing itself. So for example, for primary conductor, if I click this button, I am going to digitize this primary conductor. So go ahead, and what goes ahead and draws this segment automatically because we chose the segment option, and then the primary conductor that I had selected gets digitized. But beyond that, even further in the options, we can now configure it so that the individual sections in here, primary, service, fiber, global, secondary, these things that are defined in our profile, can also be displayed up here as categories. So as part of this, I now have devices, and you can see I have my defaults panel fly out directly. Let me get the other one to go away. It shows me the same information that's in the default panel right here in a flyout window for each of these things. So I can be more efficient with my digitizing and drafting by reconfiguring my ribbon to take advantage of this. So I can now say, okay, I want to draw a pad. I can come into here, say this is the pad that I want, and then click the button, and that's the pad that I get, as opposed to having to go to the defaults, set the default, then go to a different area to actually digitize it. I can digitize it right from there now. Excuse me. Additionally, you can create additional custom items in a drop down from this. So if I want to not just place a transformer by itself, because that doesn't make a lot of sense, you're usually not just placing a transformer, you're placing a transformer on a structure. So I can add additional commands right here to the left of it. So I can change my transformer to be a 75. And then down here, I can, just as before, I have a place pad mount transformer, or place a volt transformer. And that is going to go ahead and place the transformer model that I selected, along with whatever pad was specified in that same in the same grouping here. So the pad was the 7NC. So that is how it improves efficiency, because I can do it straight from here. Additionally, for conductor, same type of thing. I can set it up to do this like communication cable in duct, as opposed to just doing the cable by itself. Over here, I've enabled the option as a grouping. So this basically will do the individual duct, the individual conductor, or I can do the conductor in duct by clicking on this button right here. So this will do, I get all three, just as we did before from our old menus up here. And then again, it can be customized or configured to do additional things. So this particular button does it with the service line. Okay, and I have it placing a EVCS service point with the service line. So lots of options here. The way this is set up is through AUD configuration. If in AUD options, default profile, we turn this on, and then additionally we dig into our collection. And for example, for the underground structures, we set a category, devices, and I can put multiple items in here into a single category, and you'll see that like the conductor are all in a conductor category, and that is what we saw as the main level on our panel, is the category name that we put in. So back to devices. From here, if I go into my collection of devices, here's my transformer, and then I can create commands that go with that transformer, and these are all of the additional flyouts that I see from the digitize button. So here's my place pad mount transformer, place vault transformer, and then the ribbon macro, similar to how the old macros were set up, calling out what it is I want to place with what, a description that I want to show up in the tooltip, what I want it to display as well as I can specify an image to show next to it. So this is how these are configured, and quite flexible and easy to set up, but we think this will really allow us to rethink the way we want to do layout design with our ribbons and CUIs and make things go a lot faster. Let's take a sip of coffee here. So we're very excited about that feature. Okay, so the next thing we're going to show is we're going to move on to some updates that deal with underground modeling. And the first thing that we've done, and I'm going to flip back over here to my base drawing. The first thing we want to show you is dynamic parameterized ports for trenches. So if we think about the way AUD handled trenches and ports and those types of things in the past, you basically had to define a segment model or trench model. And that model basically had a 3D detail and a block that went with it that defined the ports inside of that trench, kind of pre-configured ports, right? So for this particular trench model that I'm using, this segment underground model, it is predefined with 6 ports to put to contain your conduit and conductor inside of at preset locations and preset depth. And what we've run into, or what we've seen from customers, is sometimes this work isn't always preset. They needed a way to specify on the fly where the location of these ducts are going to be inside of the trench. So we've added the ability to define, to have it dynamically define the port locations. So to do this, and to set this up, the main key here is that we've added and exposed some additional properties for the segment itself, and those are column spacing, number of columns, the row spacing, number of rows, and then this port layout definition right here, which has some options to pick from. The model option basically is legacy behavior. Use the ports that are defined in the 3D model for that particular trench. So use everything as defined. But then from there, we have some additional ones. Custom allows you to basically, on the fly, define, if I have 4 entries, it creates 4 ports, and I can move them around anywhere in space that I would like. A grid basically creates ports generated in a rectangular grid with a bottom left center line reference point, whereas a grid centered basically centers everything in the grid right down the center. A diagonal grid is the ports are generated in a rectangular grid of alternating diagonal rows with the bottom left corner at the center line. And then centered, it's the same exact thing, but centered on the center line. And then a circular grid. So like if you were going to pull it, if your trench was a pipe or something like that, that you were pulling through and you needed a circular layout for the trench. So these are the options that are available to us. And then to enable this, the main key, and I'll just go into the industry model to show you because we've included an example in the out-of-the-box content. So here on segment, I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom, and we've created this new out-of-the-box segment called Duct Bank Dynamic. And what the key to enabling this is you define a detail, but you do not define a 3D model for it. You only attach the detail, not a 3D model. This tells the system when it's in this situation and you've specified one of those port layout options to go ahead and dynamically create those ports for us. So visually, what does this mean? I'll show you some examples of that. And what this prevents too is, if you think about it, you can see out of the box here, we've defined all of these different models with different layouts of ports, right? A 2x2, a 2x3, a 3x2, so on and so forth. If you think about all the various situations that a customer could run into where they were doing customized port layouts, it could be a lot of work to have to generate models and 3D models to go along with all of these types of combinations. So instead, we have this dynamic option. So to show some examples, I've kind of pre-laid out some items here. This first one here is showing I have a segment using that dynamic segment that I just pointed out to you. And in it, I have 4 conductors and ducts. And I've gone ahead and set my port layout to say this is a grid-centered layout. Okay, so I've placed this detail here that you can see that's showing what my port layout looks like for this. I've specified a depth of 2 feet, meaning I'm 2 feet below grade, and I've specified a width. My segment is 3 feet long. And additionally, I went ahead and specified a column spacing of 1 foot. So that column spacing defines what is the distance between each of the ducts inside of the trench. What is the distance they need to take? By default, if this isn't specified, I think it's 1/2 foot is what the system will use. If that's all I specify, the system will go ahead and generate enough ports to fill in this entire area. Okay, so this is at 6 scale. So if I did a dist, I should see from here to here, I am 6 feet, which is really 1 foot at 6 scale. So, but basically it does a fill in. You can see these, I did not specify for this particular trench. I did not specify a row spacing. So it is using the default of a 1/2 foot. So based on this layout, the dimensions that I gave it, it was able to automatically generate this. I could easily change and say, this is a 1/2 foot, and it will readjust my spacing. And you can see, because these things are now closer together, it can fit more in here, and it automatically generates all of these ports for me. So I have the flexibility just by changing attributes here on the panel. of readjusting how the grid, how the trench layout is placed. So going a little further, a separate example here. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the rows and columns option. So again, I'm using a grid-centered port layout, but this time I'm actually specifying I have 3 columns and 2 rows, and I'm go ahead and using the default spacing of half a foot for both rows and column spacing. So based on that, I'm saying I want a 3x2 grid layout, and it goes ahead and generates the ports for that. And for the 4 conductors that I have in there, it lays them out. From here, I can move these things around in the duct by just clicking on my detail and moving them to the various port locations that I want them. To make a change to this, I could maybe say I want a 2x2. So I can go ahead and adjust this, and it readjusts my layout to fit in a 2x2. Or I want a 2x3, so on and so forth. I can just go ahead and make modifications directly into my attributes here, and it will dynamically adjust my ports. So what does that look like in 3D? Let's go ahead and pop in, just take a quick peek. So under the covers, AUD, zoom around here and zoom in. So here is my dynamically generated ports. You can see that they're matching up with what I see here in my detail. Additionally, I can click on the segment, and I can come over here and select one of my ducts, and maybe I'll pick one of these upper ones. So we'll select this duct. I can go to the port layout, and I can see I'm currently in the dynamically generated general 3 port, and maybe I actually want to move this. So I want it to be on 6. I can go ahead and select this new port, and it goes ahead and adjusts my duct into that port. So again, very quick and easy way to dynamically generate these things. Some additional examples of that, just going back to 2D real quick. Here it is using the grid, diagonal grid, so you can see it alternates so that they're diagonal. A circular grid, so in this particular case, I can define a circular grid like I did here, and in this particular case, the columns is the number of ports in the outer circle, and the rows is the number of circles that I want within the grid. So I've got a 1x4, so it generated 4 ports in a circular rotation. And then this last one here is the custom port layout. And again, this allows me to basically, for this one, if you say it's custom, it just generates, I have 4 ducts, it generates 4 ports to go with those ducts, and then from there, I can drag and move these around in space wherever I would like, and it's actually putting them in those physical locations offset from my segment line. So again, back to 3D. Swing around on that. And you can see here, I can just click on any of these, kind of drag their location. Oops. This one here, make sure I get the right grip. Harder to do in 3D. Where's my grip? Yeah, there we go. And we can see it automatically adjusts. So it's basically free form. I can move these things in any offset location from the segment trench that I'd like. So pretty cool stuff. Additionally, this same concept has been applied to the ducts themselves. So we now have the ability to arrange the conductor that's running through a duct in ports, and basically define its arrangement within the conduit itself. So in this case, if we look at ducts, we've exposed some underground layout section attributes here. You see they look very similar. Column spacing, columns, row spacing, rows, and a port layout. So within the duct itself, I can specify where these conductors sit inside of the duct. So maybe I want a circular layout in the duct for these particular conductors, and I want to specify how they lay within the duct itself. To help visualize this, another new feature that we've added is the ability to, under here in the Layout tab, General Layout, if we come down here, we've now created a new option for Show Pipe Thickness. So if your duct has a inner and outer diameter defined for it, you can enable this and say okay, and this allows us in 3D to represent, whereas before this was just a solid filled, I just need to do a regen to get my 3D to regenerate with that option. And I'll show you what this looks like. So if I zoom in now, before this was a solid fill for the duct. Now it is actually showing it more open with basically the dimension, the inner and outer diameter, just that dimension. And then from here, we can see the layout of the conductors within that duct. So I can, from here, I'm in a circular layout with 4 columns. So basically it lays them out perfectly in a circular rotation. I can come over here where I have defined, instead of 4, I have 3 conductors, but I've defined it as 6 ports. So I'm in a circular layout with 6 ports, and I can adjust these conductors by coming into the port option for it and saying where I want this conductor to be on those 6 ports that were generated. So maybe I want this to actually be up here. So I can pick a different port and rearrange where that physical conductor runs through that duct. So pretty cool stuff, and pretty easy to use and pretty flexible, being dynamic to allow you to lay all that stuff out. The final thing I want to show is we've also enabled the ability in the past for AUD, if you had, let's say, direct buried conductor, and you then wanted to, portion of it was direct buried and a portion of it then ran through a duct and then maybe back to direct buried, you couldn't do that as one full conductor running through various things, where sometimes it was contained by a duct and sometimes it wasn't. So we've now enabled it so the system can support that. So in this particular example here, I've got a segment. That segment contains a duct that's being direct buried inside of the property line here off the street. But as I come along and I'm going to cross the street, my standards say I need to be in a conduit, and then I want to go back to direct buried after I get across the sidewalk and back onto the property line. I just want to be direct buried again. Before, the system would not support this, but now we've enabled it so that you actually can go from direct buried. The same conductor runs all the way through, and I go from direct buried to within this duct and then to direct buried again. So again, just showing it in 3D. You can see as we come up to the street line here, we go into a conduit, then back out of the conduit and continue to run through. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about quickly is the material work location updates that we've done. We've created a new material edit tracking option that allows us to help manage materials in the material list a little better. So if you recall in AUD 8.1 and earlier, if you made modifications to a particular feature, in the material list, and I'm just going to slide this over so it's easier to see. Okay, so I've got, let's say in this particular example, I've got a transformer and I've got a few statuses here, or a few attributes that I want to set on my materials. An is hot attribute and a labor multiplier. So in the past, in AUD, if I went ahead and came onto my material list here and said, yep, this is hot, I want to set that to true, and my labor multiplier is 2. Okay, and I did something in the rules that causes this to need to get an update. So this particular pad's been changed. I'm going to come into here. I'm going to just change my transformer model real quick to something else. It's going to cause an update to the material list. So change my model group. And what happens is okay, it replaced the pad with the new pad because I changed my model out. So I've gotten a new pad and a new transformer, but I've lost the updates that I've made. There was no way to track those changes. I have to go back and physically do them again. There was an option that you can set as well for the material list where it would keep the old pad with anything that had been previously modified. It would keep that, but it would also add the new material, which typically isn't what you want. So we've added in a new material tracking feature, and I'm just going to switch over to a different design here, that allows us to better handle updates to the material list. So in this particular case, I've got the same example laid out. I have is hot and labor multiplier. I've got my transformer here, and I'm going to say, yes, this transformer is hot. And because it's hot, my labor multiplier is now 2. You know, the same thing, the ground is going to be hot, and the labor multiplier for this is, we'll change it to 1.5 or something like that. This is just a working example. So I've made these updates to my design. With this new tracking capability, I can maintain these changes if I do a model change. So I'll just show an example of that. I'm going to go ahead and change my model on this transformer. We'll go from a 1-phase model to a 3-phase model. Okay, so I've switched to a 3-phase model. You can see it's updated my CU. It's this new 3-phase model. It's updated my ground to a 3-phase ground that was required, but it maintained my is hot value of true, and it maintained my labor multiplier. And this is basically configured through the material list here, configuration, under the summation and options, excuse me. We've added, you basically want to disable like resetting the material list and stuff like that. And instead, under attributes here, we've added some new options for attributes. And the key one is this one right here, which is read only update key. If you set something that is pretty much unique for the types of features that you're placing, and in this particular case, I'm using the category name because that's pretty constant. The transformer is going to be a transformer, the pad's going to be a pad. It's able to match up on those things. It can use that as an additional key feature to determine what it should keep and transfer over to the new material that's getting added. And then additionally, you can say which fields do you want to track. So instead of it just being editable, it's now editable and tracked, meaning the system behind the scenes is going to be tracking that particular field for user updates. And part of that, because of that, you can see that items that get manually updated get shown in bold. This one is defined as it's manual. It's always manually set, so it's always in bold. And then we've added a tooltip to show you that, okay, this has been updated, it's bold, but if you hover over it, this is what the system value should have been. So in the rules, it says my labor multiplier should be 1.5, but we can actually, but we've changed it to 2, but if you hover over it, it'll show you what the original value was supposed to be. So pretty cool feature as far as being able to track materials. There is some configuration around this that has to be set up and thought out about what to use as the keys and stuff like that to manual what gets tracked. And but it will help alleviate, especially if you do a lot of work in the material list, editing the material list itself, it can help alleviate you losing those changes as you make changes to your design. Another very quick, but highly asked for feature that was added in AUD options, we have added the ability now to suppress the leader line prompt. So when you're placing a work location. So previously, in previous versions, if you placed a work location, you selected your materials, then it would prompt you to, do you want to place it a leader line with that work location? And by default, it is set to prompt, but you can actually come into here. If you never place leader lines with your work locations, you can now come into here and say never prompt, or just always place the leader line without prompting. If you always put a leader line, or if you never put one, you can set it to no, and it'll just save your users an additional click of having to specify that they don't want a leader line because you never place them. You can now just turn it off here in the options. Okay. And then the last feature that I want to show, we've got about 10 minutes left, and this should just take a few minutes, is we've made some updates to the, just slide this over. We made some updates to the overhead engineering analysis panel on how we show SAG. So if I come into here and expand this out, first thing I'll do is I'll just pop back over to 8.1 just to show you what it used to look like. So previously in 8.1 and older versions of AUD for overhead engineering analysis results, you basically have everything laid out. You have a trace with your span, and then from there you can see the pole head that span is connecting to, and everything is done at the conductor level. So you can see that this is this particular conductor, but it's showing you the results for all 3 conductors in the row there, not individual conductors. And there's no like kind of tracing as to where I am visually in the design. So this panel's been redesigned. Come back over to here. So the new results look like this. We've now broken it out, and it's based on the individual wires as opposed to the entire conductor run. So for my primary conductor here, if I continue to expand this, I get my my wind loading results for maximum, normal, and high temperature as before, but the tensions that I'm seeing are for the one specific wire. You can see as I hover over this in 3D, I get the highlighting happening here that's showing me that's the specific wire that I'm working with. And that wire is in a full ruling span, and if I hover over this, it goes all the way down the line and shows me the entire ruling span for that wire. And this is the tension for this specific wire. And then here's my other wire. And then here's my third wire. So we've broken it down, and we've exposed this information to the rule system as well, so we can do a lot more with it now than we could in the past. But it's now you get this visual representation as you hover over these things, and you're looking at it in a 3D or even in a 2D view, but it's more exciting in 3D to see specifically what I'm looking at and get my information. So with that, we have about 7 minutes left, and I would like to open it up to any questions that we have. And I also have Dave Wolber with me, who's our head engineer on this product, to help answer any of those. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them into the question box, and we'll do our best to answer those for you. And I think we have a few out there already. So let me just go with the first one here. Do you have something new about the profile plan like AutoCAD Civil 3D when you move an object still dynamic in profile? Best regards. We do have a bunch of items that we have captured for civil that we do plan on working here in the near future. This particular release does not have any civil updates specific to it. Thank you for your question. Next question is, can you generate electric schematic? We do have a one-line utility. I don't really have anything configured in this demonstration, but if you'd like more information on that, we do have capabilities to generate one lines. It's basically a different schematic stylization of the design itself. It does require some stylization and configuration to set it up to show it, which I'm not prepared to do at the moment, but there are schematic and one-line capabilities built into AUD where we can do electric schematics. And if you'd like more information on that, certainly just reach out to us. Next question is, do you have an interface to export into GE Small World? Yes, we have the Utility Data Hub product suite that we have that does interface to Small World, to Esri, to most GIS systems. We can do import and export of those features into AUD, convert them into AUD features that can then be used for design and then exported back out to the GIS system. That is our Utility Data Hub product. And again, if you'd like a demonstration of that or more information on that, certainly reach out to us. Dennis, I'm not sure who our contact person should be for anybody who has additional questions. I don't know if there's somebody you'd like to throw out there as a name.
Yeah, Stefan Dobrak, who's actually on this call, he would be able to help you get a demonstration or a technical session set up so we could show you the ins and outs of Small World. And just so you know, we have quite a few organizations that use AUD for design and GE Small World as their system of record GIS. So it's something we've done quite a bit of with over the years.
Any other questions? Feel free to go ahead and type them in, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for those questions too, I just want to comment too, whenever we take on our development activities, we tend to put it into 3 themes. You know, one is it's supporting advanced integration. You've seen a little bit of that in this release, but this next one is really reducing the overall implementation and support costs. And I think you've seen some of that with the underground work we've done. You know, behind the scenes, we've done a lot of code refactoring now too, to really improve the efficiency of what we're doing, to start handling 3D placement quite significantly, because that ties into our 3D substation activities that we've been doing. But for this release, we've been really focused on improving job throughput and getting the job throughput in place to make your designs much more efficient. So hopefully you've seen that coming through on this release. So.
And just for additional information, if you do have access to our support site, if you go to the Automated Utility Design section, and of course I signed out, sorry. If you go to the Automated Utility Design section and you look at releases, the AUD 8.2 release notes, if you open those, it has a full listing of all the feature enhancements that are included in 8.2. There's quite a bit more than what was shown today, so feel free to check out that release note for all those additional features. And if you had questions on any of it, again, reach out to Stefan. We'd be happy to set up additional demos or talk about additional features with you. So.
Yeah, I'll also comment too that with this unusual 2020 year, as most of you know, we're not doing an in-person peer utility group conference. So it was originally going to be held in Denver this year, but we will be holding several online sessions, and that's in the process of being scheduled, so you should be getting more details on that. And that's an opportunity where you can get really in-depth with us on some of these features and also provide us your input. I mean, so much of what you've seen here has been driven by many of you providing input into the product, and we really enjoy keeping those doors open so you can share with us what's gone well, what hasn't, where you would like to help take the product in the future. So we always welcome that feedback and look forward to keeping that going even during these unusual times we're in right now. So.
And a couple more questions that have come in. Dave, this is a good one for you. How does the ability to configure layout in Ducts affect pulling tension analysis, or does it?
Yeah, yeah. It really doesn't affect pulling tension. It's really designed to support more for data tracking. The impact of pulling tension would still be based on calculations of things like jam ratio and configured arrangements like that. So that kind of physical arrangement, it doesn't necessarily directly impact it. It would kind of be handled through the ways that you'd specify jam ratio and things like that previously. But I do want to mention that conductor layout, although it may not come up as often in a kind of a need for in the design space, but it's when we're looking at customers integrating to the ESRI utility network model and more advanced scenarios wanting to track conduit and trench layouts, the ability to kind of separate out multiple conductors inside individual conduits like that is something that's just potentially helpful for just managing that and tracking unique offsets for all those different lines.
And one final question here from Rory. Has there been any improvements on the integration between AUD and Substation Design Suite? Rory, I can basically say that we are working hard on the substation design layout capabilities. A lot of the back-end work has been completed. Now we're going to focus heavily on the actual design portion of that. So that is in the works. There'll be a lot of effort towards that through the rest of this year for AUD 8.3 or I should say Substation Design Suite in the future here, the future product that we're going to be coming out with. So we are putting a lot of effort towards that. There was a lot of just back-end stuff that needed to be taken care of to support that type of design, and we're making good progress on that. But to date, we don't have a lot to share on it at the moment. So I think that's all the questions, and we are over the hour, at the top of the hour. So I'd like to thank you all for attending. Hopefully you found this useful and informative. And again, reach out to Stefan if you have further demonstrations that you'd like to see or further inquiries, and we'd be happy to get those taken care of for you. So thank you everyone for attending. Appreciate it.
Bye everyone. Thanks.